This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as The Zone in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? How are we? Your weekend has now officially started. It's Friday night's late night agenda. Tonight, as always, we're going to be focusing on the January transfer window, what may and may not happen. We'll talk about the game coming up on Sunday. We'll have some talk of a contract extension, maybe a Liverpool player going out on loan, and a few other bits and pieces that, as always, I hope keeps you right up to date. As always, though, it's your show. You let me know what you'd like to discuss. If you're watching this back later on, we do appreciate your support. The game, don't forget, is Sunday, 4:30, ladies and gents, which means we'll be live from 3:15 p.m. The preview for the Manchester City game will be coming out at 10:45 tonight. It's already recorded and scheduled to go out, so when we finish the stream, it should be there for you. I don't think you're going to have too many surprises with my team selection, perhaps with my score prediction, but I'm not giving that away just yet. But most importantly, whatever you guys do have planned for your weekend, I hope it's a good one. I hope your families are all well, and I do really appreciate you giving up some of your Friday night. Look, I'm the boring man. I don't have a social life. I don't go out and do much, so weekends for me just mean I get to spend a bit more time with the kids. But apart from that, I'm happy to be here with you all. Right, let's get cracking. Loads to talk about. Where to start. So we're going to discuss Adam Wharton as well tonight, by the way, because, well, a former player of, I think, Crystal Palace, certainly a Welsh player, has been talking about Adam Wharton and why it would be a good idea for him to come to Liverpool. So we'll talk about that. There's a little bit linking Andy Robertson with a potential move to Celtic when his contract is up. We'll discuss that one as well, and a few other bits and pieces that we covered earlier on. Match preview, Aziz, is coming out 10:45, my man. So as soon as we finish this stream, that should be there and ready for you. PCF 604, Craig, haven't been able to watch for a while. Happy I can be here. I'm pumped for the game this weekend. Well, I hope that you have a good weekend, my friend, and I appreciate you being here with us. I'm buzzing for it, but I'm also nervous, right? Because, as I keep saying, even at the best of times, even in the best of form, Manchester City away is a difficult game. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect performance-wise. There's been some more links, by the way, for KONATE, but again, with a move away from Anfield. And I'm starting to wonder, in Liverpool's mind, are they going to bring in Mark A, whenever that may be, and have they already kind of admitted defeat on Ibrahima KONATE or keeping him at the club? Because the more this news goes on and on, the more that's how it's looking. Tonight we'll talk about Bayern Munich and their interest in Ibrahima KONATE. We'll also have a few words from Arne Slot. We'll talk about Wayne Rooney and Virgil van Dijk and their little disagreement. But I want to kick off with a story that quite literally did make me burst out laughing earlier on. And I think it's from The Overlap, because Anfield Edition posted it and said, we are The Overlap, so it must be The Overlap. They said, Brendan Rodgers, now wait till you hear this, honestly, imagine how different our future could have been. Just think about that when I'm saying this. Brendan Rodgers was really opposed to signing Felipe Coutinho in 2013 and instead wanted to sign Tom Ince from Blackpool. The Tom Ince that was once upon a time a Liverpool player, wanted to sign him from Blackpool. Michael Edwards and Barry Hunter managed to use data to convince Brendan Rodgers to sign Felipe Coutinho. Now, the reason I bring this up is I sat there earlier on today and I wondered, what would our last 10 years have been like if Coutinho hadn't have joined Liverpool? Because we certainly wouldn't have got that big chunk of money, which would have allowed us to go and bring in Alisson Becker and Virgil van Dijk. I don't think Tom Ince would have gone for the same 140 odd million. But it just goes to show you it is important who has that final say in transfers, because looking back at that now, Coutinho, Tom Ince, I mean, I know Captain Hindsight and all, but that would have been could have been a very different last 10, 12 years. So very grateful that Hughes and Edwards won that, or Edwards and Hunter won that little debate, and the Klopp got the services of Felipe Coutinho when he came in and didn't have to make do with Tom Ince, who of course would have been Rodgers' choice. Craig, can you tell me if the rumour that Klopp might be the next Leeds manager? It's not true. It's not true. You don't have to worry about that. Sure, the man himself has already said Liverpool will be the only club he'd manage in the Premier League. I can see the easy link, right? Because Leeds are part owned by Red Bull. They've Red Bull sponsorship on the front of their jerseys as well. So, I never understood why they kept Daniel Farke, because it was very clear that he wasn't going to cut it in the Premier League. He hasn't cut it in the Premier League previously. And it was a tough call for Leeds over the summer, whether they were going to stick with the man who got them promoted or whether they were going to make a change. And look, I do think eventually they'll make the change, but it won't be Jurgen, so you don't have to worry about that one. Right, another really interesting thing that I read today, and I want to congratulate James Pearce on his new book, Walk On. I didn't even know he had one out until I read this piece. So, I'm a big fan of James Pearce. Always said he's been great for football content over the years. He's always been very kind to people. And I don't agree with a lot of what he has to say, but I do respect him massively as a journalist. And this is a little bit of an inside story from that book that has gone out today in social media. And I want to just read you these few paragraphs because it really gives an insight into the handover of when Edwards came in, when Hughes came to the club, and when, of course, Jurgen was saying his goodbyes. This they detail as the inside story of what Klopp did after Michael Edwards returned. Because we all wonder, right? We all wonder, was there a butting of heads there? Were they in disagreement over who has the power to sign the players? Well, this piece, I think, is great insight from James Pearce. It says, Edwards had messaged Jurgen Klopp to inform him about his new role after agreeing to return to FSG and asked Jurgen if they could meet up. Klopp invited Edwards to his mansion on Victoria Road in Formby and they talked for 3 hours about football. I want this to work, Klopp told him. I want what comes after me to be a success. You can pick up the phone anytime, night or day. I'm here to help and staying out of the way. If that helps, then I'll do that as well. I'll be as involved as you want. The German coach went through the squad player by player, giving his assessment of where he felt they were at. And Edwards went away and told colleagues that he regarded the conversation with Jurgen as priceless. Klopp subsequently met Richard Hughes to answer all the questions he had about the personnel at the club and where improvements could be made. And internally, it was described as the golden handover, meaning, of course, that it was done perfectly. No plain politics from Jurgen, just very humble, said one senior figure at the club. Klopp's opinion wasn't sought by either Edwards or Hughes on the pursuit of a new head coach, but when he was informed who the new head coach would be, he said, smart choice, good guy, and I love how his teams play football. So, lovely bit of insight there from James Pearce on the handover or the bye-bye of Jurgen and the hello back for Hughes and Edwards. So, yeah, really good insight. And as I said, wishing James the very best with his book. I'll certainly be picking up a copy of it to have a read. Why do so many clubs want KONATE? I think he's average and lacks composure under pressure. I would say at this point, my friend, it's most likely because he's going to be on a free. I know there's no such thing as a free, really. Frees are just no transfer fee. But, if you're going on a free, you're going to get a nice signing on fee there from somebody. So I think it's probably that. This summer, you're going to have KONATE, maybe Upamecano as frees, and Mark Gay, of course, as well. So I would imagine, he played at Liverpool Football Club. He's won the Premier League with Liverpool Football Club. He's won pretty much most trophies at Liverpool Football Club. So that does look very good on your CV and, of course, would interest a lot of clubs. Right, what else we got in the chat? I've done that one. So glad Rodgers is gone. Ian Graham's book illustrates that Rodgers had no idea how to spot talent. I haven't had the chance yet to read Dr. Ian Graham's book, but certainly on my to-do list, because when it comes to transfers, I do think there's a place for both old-fashioned scout networks and data. I think it is important, especially when you're looking for maybe those hidden gems. Sometimes data can really add there because, when you go and watch a player, you might watch a player 10 times, but you might miss 5 things in 5 other games. So sometimes the data and that together, of course, in modern transfers is certainly the best way to look at it. So One crazy story that I'd seen from Caught Offside and credit Transfer News Live for the Post, they said that Chelsea are ready to rival Liverpool for the signing of Newcastle defender Sven Botman. There's been a delay sorting out a new contract for Botman due to the change in sporting director at Newcastle United, and the delay has opened the door for a move away from the club. Now, I've got to say, I don't believe this for a few reasons. One, I don't think Newcastle would welcome any emails or conversations from Liverpool about anybody at the minute. And also, we had a chance a few years back when Sven Botman was available. I can't remember where he was leaving. I think it was a club in France, if my memory's right. And of course, he went to Newcastle. So I don't really believe the link, in all honesty. But let me know what you guys think about it. Do you think Liverpool are interested in Sven Botman? Or is it just, again, some bullshit paper links, which is where I'm at with it, in all honesty. Van Dijk said Ian Graham's book How to Win the Premier League is a great book as it gives you the insight of how beautiful the club is run. Do get yourself a copy, Craig and chat. I certainly plan to, mate. I've nothing but respect for Dr. Ian Graham, and I think he founded Ludonautics, didn't he, with Michael Edwards before Edwards had to bow out with the company because he came back to work for FSG. Right, let's talk about Adam Wharton, if we can, for a minute, because I'm sure that's why a lot of you guys are coming in as interested as I am in this. So there was a conversation with Joe Ledley, and I think it was one of the gaming companies or betting companies or something like that. And he was talking about the future of Adam Wharton, where he thinks he should go, where would be a good fit. And I don't know if he knows something we don't know or if he's just trying to link two and two together. But this piece here, he said, Liverpool would be a good move for Adam Wharton in that midfield with Alexis McAllister. He went on to say, also Arsenal, those sort of teams, the ones that get on the ball and are possession based, he would suit. So it wouldn't surprise me if these two were interested in January or at the end of the season in Adam Wharton. He's really confident on the ball, a good passer, moving it back and forward, and is always on the front foot. When he has played against Liverpool, he's been fantastic against them and set up a few goals. So it wouldn't surprise me if it would be Liverpool or Arsenal that tried to sign Adam Wharton. Now, I think there could be legs to the Adam Wharton stuff at Liverpool because we need to look at the homegrown quota. Of course, we've mentioned this before. It is a position that most of us feel Liverpool could do with addressing, but I don't think it will be a January move or anything like that. I certainly feel if you're looking at Wharton, you're looking at next summer as when that might be feasible. So do let me know your thoughts on it and where you think Adam Wharton may end up. Another piece in that same interview actually said that Crystal Palace have no intention of letting Adam Wharton leave in the January window, but there have been reports they'll attempt to cash in on Mark Gay in January in order to prevent the captain leaving on a free transfer. Now, if they are willing to listen to an offer for Mark Gay in January, I wonder what Liverpool will do, because there's two ways to look at this if you're Liverpool, right? If you have his word, and I don't know if they do or don't, but if Liverpool have his word that he'll come at the end of the summer, do you stay relaxed about that and wait? Or do you pay a few quid and bring him in January and, try to bet him into the team? Now, I don't know whether Mark Gay wants to move mid-season. I keep coming back to this point. But I do want to make sure he ends up in a Liverpool shirt. So I'm intrigued to see what everybody else thinks as well on that. Do you think it will be January that Liverpool try to maybe, pay 15, 20 million quid to get him at a Crystal Palace? Or do Liverpool sit tight knowing that, yes, we may lose KONATE at the end of the season, but if they have a ready-made replacement in Mark Gay, maybe they're relaxed about that? I wish I knew the answer to that, by the way, because it would certainly cure a few of my headaches. Adam Brown, how are we doing? Thank you so much, mate. 13 months as a member. Really appreciate you. So great to see talks for new deals for Dom and Gravenberch. Absolutely. And, I think we'd all agree, sir, very well deserved for those two gents as well, those new deals. Especially Dom, I want to get him tied down because, let me ask this question of you tonight. So, one sec. I want to just ask you a simple question. Feel free to put in a name if you disagree in the chat, but I want to just ask, should Dominik Szoboszlai be captain after Virgil van Dijk? So whenever Virgil's time at the club is up, do you think that Dominik Szoboszlai is the future Liverpool captain? Because I've got to say, I do. I've also thought Alexis McAllister, but the more I've thought about it, I think Dom will be here longer. than Alexis will. So for me, whenever Virgil leaves the club at the end of his 2-year contract extension, whatever that might be, I would say my vote at this moment in time would certainly be with Dominik Szoboszlai, but interested to know what you guys think. Other than Robbo, yeah. See, I don't think Robbo will be here at that point. And that's kind of the point I'm making. Andy Robertson's contract is up at the end of this season. Now, we'll move on to talk about Robbo in a minute because there's been some links with Celtic. But yeah, I'm probably thinking a year and a half down the line at this point. Wolski said Adam Wharton would be an incredible signing. Gay would be perfect player to bring in, either replacing KONATE or creating more depth. Smart moves from the club if it's true. Mihibalach, excuse me if I've mispronounced that, sir, said, we get Mark and switch to 5 at the back, really utilise the attacking fullbacks. I still come back to this point. I don't have anything whatsoever against the idea of 5 at the back. I just don't think we have anywhere near enough centre-backs to really make that our tried and tested, done and dusted formation, because for me, if you're going to play with 3 centre-backs, you need 5 or 6 centre-backs at the club. And we've seen no indication yet that Arne will do that. Now, I'm not against it. As a fan, I can totally understand where you're coming from, especially with the wing-backs thrown into that conversation. Wayne, how are we? TOT2KZ1 said, any news on Bajcetic? Slot never talks about him. He's back training. You know, I can tell you that much, mate. He's back training, but he didn't have a pre-season, and it's going to be very difficult. Now, there might be a time during, Mo's at the AFCON and we're rotating players around a bit more. Maybe Stefan gets his time then, but he has no competitive minutes in his legs, in senior football, so it's going to take some time. But he definitely is back training. I can tell you that one for certain. How am I feeling ahead of Man City? Said Petter. I'm nervous, dude. I'm nervous. I'm always going to be nervous. Even when Man City were all over the shop last season, I was nervous about that game. It's a tough game, but I feel a little bit more at ease because of the 2 games we played before it. I was desperately hoping that we got those results against Aston Villa and Real Madrid, and we got them, and we also got really good performances. So as a Liverpool fan right now, I'm certainly feeling more calm about the future, although I still think it's a stretch to talk about a title challenge this season with where we're currently at. So I really don't know how I'm going to feel or react to whatever the results are. If Liverpool win, that's fairly self-explanatory. But the one that has me most confused is the possibility of a draw and how I'll feel about a draw. Because on the face of it, if you ask me when the fixtures come out, would you take a draw away at Manchester City? I'd probably say yeah. Most of the time, in all honesty, when all's done and dusted, a draw away from home against them isn't a bad result. But we are 7 points behind Arsenal. We're 1 point behind Manchester City. The odds are most likely Arsenal will win their game this weekend. So, if we drew, then we're dropping to 9. And that's still a huge gap to make up. So my head says draw at the weekend, but my heart obviously wants a Liverpool win. Gay is class, reads the game better than KONATE. Oh, look, mate, I said it in the summer, I'll say it again. If you gave me a straight option between those two, I would take Mark Gay every day of the week. Paul Owen said it's a must-win Sunday for sure. See, I totally get where you're coming from on that, Paul. And, on the face of it, I don't disagree. I just want to try to be realistic about my own expectations going into the game, so I'm not setting myself up. If I'm going in here thinking it's a must-win and we get a draw, I don't want to be feeling upset about that because of the week we've had to build up to it. If we came into this game, let's say, having drawn with Aston Villa, beaten Real Madrid, then yeah, I'd probably say it is a must-win. But not losing, and I think I'll be okay with it. Because realistically, in my own mind, Paul, I'm not thinking of us in a title race at this point. I've said this a few times this week. I don't think we have the right at the minute as fans to be talking about a title race, especially with Arsenal looking as defensively solid as they are. But on that, Arne's had a little bit to say about the title race. This is a quote from the manager. He said, if you look at the current league table, it's clear. Arsenal 6 points ahead of Manchester City, 7 points ahead of us. But when there are 10 games to go last season, we were leading by 8 or 10 points and I didn't feel completely safe yet. I get that, but, for me, I think our best chance is Champions League this year. I really do. You know, you don't want to give up on the league. Of course not. You want to keep plugging away. But we've got to earn the right to talk about being in a title race. And I always want to make sure we solidify our place in that top 3 or 4. Go as deep as we can in the Champions League and see where we end up. Because if we can peak at the right time, I think we've got every chance in the Champions League. We're as good as anybody else in it. Danny said, it's going to be a draw. I would take it depending on how that happens. If we come back and draw, it's a good result. Yeah, I totally get, Danny, where you're coming from on how the draw happens. Because if you're 3-0 up and you get pegged back and draw 3-all, that's not feeling like a decent draw, is it? But, you know, if you were to go 3-0 down and got back to 3-all, you're leaving there and it feels like a win. So I do think the context of the result is important, like you've said, mate. But I still think I'd be okay with a draw overall. But, you know, be absolutely... I think maybe I'll just protect myself, you know. And I'm just worried to think about a win in case we get a draw and I suddenly feel upset by it. Alejandro, how are you, sir? Said Craig, how do we feel on Rodgers renewing his contract with Villa? Hope we can still get him at some point. Perfect player for us. I think I'm okay about it. You know, Wirtz coming in kind of calmed me down a bit with that type of area of the pitch. Because I don't see Rodgers as the pacey direct winger that I think we need in the squad. So if Wirtz coming in, I'm okay about it. And look, he's a Villa player. I don't blame them one bit trying to tie him down. If you don't know what we're speaking about, David Ornstein earlier on via The Athletic said, exclusive, Aston Villa reach agreement with Morgan Rodgers on a new contract. Previous deal till 2030, fresh terms till 2031 with significantly improved salary despite strong interest from the Premier League and foreign clubs. 23-year-old midfielder to sign in the coming days. So, yeah, I'm okay with that, in all honesty. I think we need a pacey forward. Now, somebody asked me about Semenyo in the chat here a minute ago. I'm going to try and scroll back to see if I can find the comment. I meant to get to it, but I kind of glossed over it. Where are we? This one. BG Veteran said, Craig, don't you think we should go for Elise instead of Semenyo? Oh, mate, look, if you ask me which one I want, I'm with you 100%, bro. It's Elise. But it's also about timing, right? I don't think you get Elise out of Bayern Munich this summer. I really don't. Maybe you get him the summer after, and, you know, that's, I guess, when it comes down to succession planning. Semenyo, it seems like the club pondered the idea of making a move from this summer, eventually saying they didn't want to block the pathway for Rio. But as we sit here now and assess the squad and our attacking options for the season, I feel we're missing a direct attacking player of the ilk of Luis Diaz. So if I had a choice between the two, yes, I would take Elise. But if Semenyo came in, I would totally understand that as well as a signing. Yeah, so I'm easy, but I do think we need one of them. We need somebody of that ilk, pace, power, directness. Not only because Mo's going away to the AFCON, but we need to start succession planning for that position longer term. And when we had this conversation in the last few days, most of us felt like we'd like to see that player brought in the summer to give him a year to settle into the team. And of course, then to start phasing. It just sounds horrible to say it, but to phase Mo out so we're ready to go when Mo departs, that you've got that new player bedded in. Framite said, Craig, I like your outfit. Thank you. It's just from the club shop. Yep, it's one of the newer hoodies that they've brought out, but it's really nice. I love it. It's probably the most well-made thing I've got from Liverpool yet this summer. Feels really kind of premium quality. We need to bring in a Salah's successor, said Wolski. After bringing in a centre-back, the club must bring in a left-footed winger, maybe Semenyo, Elise or others. I don't disagree. You know, my priority list right now would be centre-back, wide player, defensive midfielder. They'd be, in that order, my 3 areas of concern. Philip said, wasn't it nice to see Bellingham and Trent's faces when we showed them who Liverpool is, even though we're going through a bad patch? Look, it's always nice to beat Real Madrid. You know, whatever happens at any point. And what was really satisfying for me about this Real Madrid victory was last year there was some chatter that Real Madrid weren't in the best moment. They were coming in and we got them at the right time. Couldn't say that to us this year. Because if anything, we were the ones going into that game with dodgy form. They'd scored in every single game since the Club World Cup until they came to Anfield. They had Mbappe, they had Bellingham, they had Vinny Jr., they had Rodrigo, they had everybody they had available. And it feels like a good morale-boosting win. And yeah, look, I despise Madrid as a club, for a couple of reasons. One, I grew up being a Barcelona fan with regards to Spanish football. And then I just don't like the way Madrid operate. I don't like the arrogance. I don't like the entitlement. I don't like the decisions that often go in their favour. So I always feel good getting one over on them. But we need to get one over on them when it counts in a knockout point or in the final of a Champions League, because that's when it'll really mean something. It's always great to beat them, but to beat them in the knockout phase or the final would really make a difference to the old psyche. BG Veteran said, Semenyo, I'm a bit worried because of the lack of pace. Oh, Semenyo doesn't have a lack of pace. He doesn't. He might not be as lightning quick, but Semenyo has a couple of things the others don't. So when you're talking about Semenyo, maybe there's, a 10% differential in the pace, but you do have the physicality with Semenyo. You have that physical presence. Like, he's a big dude. I'm not sure what height he is, but he must be 6 foot if he's an inch. Big physical dude, strong, knows where the goal is. I mean, just have a look at the goal he scored against us this season in the first game, where he ran from inside his own half. He's no slouch in that regard, and having his best season, I think, numbers-wise so far in the Prem as well. So I could understand that link, but like I said, I'm with you. Elise would be very top of my list. Summa said, do we need a Salah replacement? Ekitike versus Isak Gakpo will hopefully fit. No, we definitely do, mate, because, look at the course of the season. We need 6 forwards because we play with 3. You could say 5 in young Rio. I could get that as well, but we definitely do need a Salah replacement. Rio will most likely eventually be the competition on the left-hand side with Cody Gakpo. As you said, we've got 2 good centre forwards there that, yes, they can maybe both play together as well, but we've nothing on that right. We'll all sit here and say Chiesa over and over again, but we know that Arna ain't going to do that. So, and even with Chiesa, I still don't think we've enough depth there. 6 forwards is what we need. 6 is what we have if you account for Chiesa and Rio, but they're not really getting the minutes. So, yeah, I would say we do need to bring him in as a, longer term replace. But when the right time to do that is, I guess, is up for debate. The Scan said, who do you think wins the Champions League this year, Craig? Oof. The usual suspects will be there or thereabouts. Liverpool will be there or thereabouts. Arsenal will be there or thereabouts. Madrid probably be there or thereabouts. PSG don't look the same this year, but they've had some injuries, to be fair to them. Bayern Munich deserve respect for the performances and, the results that they're putting in as well. I don't really see, outside of that, too many more contenders. Like, people might say Barcelona, but I really think they're too easily got at defensively. I watched their last game and I couldn't believe how easy it was for Club Brugge with some pace to get at them and really torment that high line. So I wouldn't have them in the category that I think they can win the Champions League. In all honesty, I think they're maybe a year or 2 away from that, and with the younger players they have coming through. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the clubs for the Champions League. Liverpool, Arsenal, Premier League is showing its muscle this season. It's shown why it is the most watched and the most popular league in the world. And after that, you've got Madrid, Bayern Munich. Paris Saint-Germain deserve respect, of course, as the defending champions, but I don't really see, outside of that, anybody else. Unless I've forgotten somebody really obvious there. Don't see Spurs doing it, obviously. None of the Italian teams, I think, are strong enough, although Inter are a very good unit. They look like they'd aged overnight when they played Paris Saint-Germain in the final. Like, PSG ran all over them in that final. Absolutely just trounced them. Barca feel like a moments team, said Keane, needing Yamal, Rafinha and Pedri magic to win games. I agree. And that defensive high line. I know we've played with that high line as well in the past, so I get it, but that Hansi Flick one just seems exceptionally high. Like, yeah, easily got at if you can time the right balls over the top. Guys, I got good news. My girlfriend accepted my proposal. What was the proposal? Was it a portion this evening, or was it will you marry me, dear? If it was either one, congratulations, bro. No, delighted for you, mate. Well in. And delighted for the girlfriend as well. So well into both of you. I love a bit of good news, that. I do. I love a bit of good news. So yeah, congrats. Right, more news. Let's talk Calvin Ramsay for a little moment here. The Daily Mail have a piece out that said Liverpool's 22-year-old right back Calvin Ramsay is expected to leave on loan in January. What do we think on this one? Right decision? Wrong decision? Understandable decision? I don't know. I don't know, because I'm still concerned about Frimpong and where he really fits into the team and if he will be a right back. So I wouldn't mind hanging on to Ramsay if his fitness can stay up, because I think he could be a decent option. But then again, where do you really play him? Like, what games would you rotate him in for? So can kind of understand any which way that happens, but maybe I'm being selfish here and just wanting to stockpile players. Remember the Spondulix on Twitch? Yes, I do. Look, we enjoyed our time on Twitch at the time, but YouTube just does feel like our home, and it feels like the right place for us. So I need help. You might say, yes, Craig, we fucking knew that already, fella. But no, I need a little bit of advice or help. So, as you know, we're kitting out the studio, we're building the new studio. The thing that I thought was going to be one of the easiest things to get is proving very difficult, and that's a table, the right type of table. We have searched high and low to try and find the right type of look for what we're doing. We've spoke to furniture makers, we've spoke to furniture stores, carpenters, and I'm really struggling to try and find the right look of table, because you don't want it to look like an office table. You don't want it to look like a receptionist table, but you want it to be that wow piece in the studio. So anybody with any tips, hints, leads, please do let me know, because it's proving extremely frustrating for myself and Connor at the minute to try and figure it out. Malanma, seek help, my friend. Seek help, because my God, that's seek help, bro. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. A standing desk? No. Standing desk, my arse. Do I look like the type of man to stand for a 4-hour watch-along stream, dude? Come on. No. A studio type desk, like nice white circular lines, that kind of thing. Look, I'll show you my inspiration for the desk and what I'd ideally love. Because this desk, the supplier seems a bit questionable. But something like this, something like that, is roughly what I'm looking for. You can get rid of the side piece, the L part of it, but something along those lines is the kind of look I'm looking for the desk. So yeah, something like that is the dream scenario for us, but really struggling to find one, to be honest, and searched for days now trying to figure it out. Custom make it with whatever finish you like. And how am I going to do that? Because I'm not a carpenter, nor do I have the materials. Nor, like I said, I don't. I mean, do you think I didn't think of custom making a table? It's just time, expense, who, where, how long, what's the lead time? These are the type of questions that I don't really know. Best thing to do is bring the joiner in. Yeah, but a joiner can't make that curved effect. And that's the kind of look we're looking for. As I said, I've spoken to carpenters, I've spoken to furniture makers. If you want something sleek and curved like that, very, very difficult to source them, especially in Ireland. We're a smaller market than the UK, as an example. Corbin said, happy 8 months. Thank you, bro. 1 more month, we could have had a child. There you go. But thank you, mate. Appreciate your support. Harry said, do you have John Lewis in Ireland? We don't. No, we don't, mate. Not that I'm aware of. Anyway, Leicester's one in Dublin, but I'm not aware of one. They do decent furniture. Sorry if we don't have it, or look there if they don't ship to Ireland. I'm sure they'd ship. So I'm sure I could probably have a look online, but yeah, not having any joy at the minute. Harry, nope, from that one, sorry. This next one from Wesley. I think it'd be cool to see the podcast done in the studio, all three of you lads, even with a couple of these lads, and you and Connor inside the studio. Well, that's certainly going to be the plan. You know, obviously Chris will be coming in remotely as he's in the UK. But myself and Connor plan on making some content together on the desk, definitely, which is, like I said, why it's such an important piece for us in the studio that if we don't get that right, there's no point. The rest of it, you know. See if you can get a table sponsor. I often wonder that people realise how difficult it is to get a sponsor for anything. Like even for content, it's really difficult, you know, unless you're well connected, which I certainly ain't. You know, a lot of the lads who do YouTube at a top level would have agents, and those agents would have contacts, and those contacts would have brand contacts, and yeah, it's quite difficult, you know. So we kind of just plow ahead as we are. Love to get one though. I'd love a furniture company to get in touch and work with them on something like that. Definitely. Have you tried contacting a Perspex plastic acrylics factory? They'd be able to heat and bend those nice curves. Do you know, George? I haven't really thought about that, but it's a very good show. Um, yeah, it's certainly a good shout, mate. Like you said, good idea. Thank you. Appreciate that. What's wrong with the table you showed us? This one, the company that it comes from have very questionable reviews. You know, um, and that will be the problem with it. That table, if I could buy that and be guaranteed it would come and it was all fine, we'd get that tomorrow. It's just the reviews of that particular supplier are very hit and miss, and also the lead time on that is about 4 or 5 months as well, which makes me feel like they're just shipping it from China anyway. Do we have Howdens in Ireland? Don't know is the honest answer, my friend. Don't know. But look, I appreciate all your input anyway. You've given me some good ideas to think about. I don't want to take up the whole stream talking about the studio furniture, but thank you for all the suggestions, and certainly going to keep thinking. And I'm hoping maybe somebody watching this works somewhere that could be able to put us in the right direction or something like that. So yeah, if you are watching this back and you have any suggestions, contact at AnfieldAgenda.com. Always appreciate your feedback. Right, let's keep going. Dominik Szoboszlai, let's congratulate Dom for winning the Standard Charter Player of the Month for October, following on from Federico Chiesa's win, of course, the month before. Very deserving, so well done to Dom on that one. Can we see it again or in the WhatsApp? You can see it here if you want. I can post it into the WhatsApp. Oh yeah, I can post the table into the WhatsApp. 1 second. People are going to wonder what this table is when I post it into the WhatsApp, but bear with me. Right, where's the WhatsApp one? So, plus photo. There. So there, it's in the WhatsApp now. I've posted it in there. People are going to be very confused as to what that's for, but you guys that are here know what it's for. Right, let's get back to it. Your table needs to be right. It's your workplace. The thing that I'm thinking about, Paul, is, you know, you spend all this money building the studio, kitting it out, you know, getting the right textures and stuff, getting the right depth. The table's the most important part for me in all of this, because you guys don't see me working with a table now. I have a table, but you don't see that because the camera just comes to my waist. So yeah, table in this is going to be important because we're gonna have a cool feature on the front of it as well, where we're going to be able to, you know, digitally put content onto it and stuff. And yeah, it's hugely important. WhatsApp, Craig. Yes, Anfield Agenda have a WhatsApp, my friend. If you aren't in it, just scan this QR code there on the screen. That will bring you to the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. We have incredibly 15,500 people in our WhatsApp community already, and we only launched it this summer. So if you aren't already in there, just scan that QR code and that will bring you to the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. Right, let's keep going. Lots more to talk about. KONATE. Let's get stuck into the conversations around EBU. So, a few different things coming out of build in Germany around Ibrahima Konate. So let me read this out to you first. Credit LFC Transfer Room for posting this. Bayern really wants to keep Dayot Upamecano. The central defender recently showed a top performance in the victory against Paris Saint-Germain and cleared everything defensively. They go on to say, however, if there's no contract extension in the end, Bayern already has a promising candidate, Ibrahima Konate. They said Bayern are in contact with the management of Ibrahima Konate, whose contract at Liverpool expires next summer. The Frenchman is an option for Bayern in case Dayot Upamecano leaves, writes Alto Belly 13. Konate's camp is speaking to Bayern, Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. The fact that he knows the Bundesliga and that he will be a free agent in the summer makes him a lucrative option for Bayern. So, like I said, these are reports from Germany, so they're probably going to be very German football leaning. But it does sound as if he's already talking with, or his agent is talking with, those three clubs mentioned, which makes me feel, as a Liverpool fan, it's pretty unlikely that he's going to be staying as things sit. So, that makes me feel one of two things. Either we're really comfortable that we're bringing in Mark Gay at the end of the season, or we're up shit creek. And I fail to believe it's the second one. Scott said we can do what you need, Craig, table-wise. Well, Scott, if you could email us, bro, contact@anfieldagenda.com, contact@anfieldagenda.com. It'd be a pleasure to talk with you, mate, and try to figure that out if there's any way that you could help, like you said. We really appreciate it. That was just me being done with WhatsApp, Craig. Was asking how you were. Oh, sorry. I didn't get that, man. That's on me. I'm good, though. I'm good, dude. Kilo, I hope you're well as well, mate. Sorry. Bit of a dumb moment for me there as well. From the Liverpool side, it looks like total confidence. Mark Gay will be a red, said Keane. I hope that's the case, Keane, mate. I do. Like I've said this so many times, I'm kind of living off the James Pearce thing at the end of last season, where he said, if it's not this summer, it feels like it's a matter of time and not when, that he'll be a Liverpool player. And I hope he's right. Grandad's lad said, Vert's going to be the king of Europe with Commander Dom. Look, I love Dom. And this season he's really stepped up, hasn't he? And, he's dare I say it, looking very Gerrard-esque with that number 8 on as well. Yeah, I hope. Let's check the poll, actually, where we asked you guys, would Dom be captain after Virgil van Dijk for you? And we've just about hit 1,000 votes, so do keep voting away if you haven't. But the question we're asking, should Dominik Szoboszlai be captain after Virgil van Dijk? Ben said, Craig, do you think Wirtz will make the breakthrough on Sunday versus Man City and score? I don't know, mate. And honestly, I don't really mind if he scores or not. I just want to see the performance level from him lifting, and it has been. And as the manager said, and I think it's right, he's been unlucky that he hasn't had a few more assists, maybe. Will he play against Man City from the start? That's another interesting question. Will he go back to Cody Gakpo, or will he feel that the team that played midweek is the right one to go into it? But look, I'm seeing improvement from him game on game, and I thought against Real Madrid he was really, really good. If the goals come, brilliant. But ultimately, as long as the team keep winning, that's where I'm happy, to be honest. Can I plug my clothing brand on here, please? It depends what your clothing brand is, mate. As long as it's nothing offensive, crack on. You be you. I'm here. You're here to support me. I'm here to support our community as well. And if you have something, you'd like to try and push out there, as long as it's not offensive to anyone, crack on, man. Be a pleasure to let you use the platform. That's what I said. We're all here to help each other. Harry, how are we, sir? I was thinking the other day, as soon as my wife says that to me, I say, uh-oh, but, that's for another conversation, Harry. I was thinking the other day, what are the similarities and differences between the UK and Ireland? Off the top of my head, I came up with a joint hatred of Ryanair and a shared love of Graham Norton. Well, I love Ryanair, personally, and I don't understand why anybody complains about them, because, yes, you don't get the greatest of customer service on stuff or ability to change stuff, but, I'm old enough to remember paying ridiculous money to go over to the UK, and hundreds of quids to go to the UK on a flight before Ryanair came in. So I love Ryanair. Big fan, and I'll always look to book with Ryanair where possible, because I actually, yes, you can't cancel flights and stuff like that, but for me, I think they revolutionised European air travel, so I'm a fan there. What are the other similarities and differences? I think we both love a fry up, right? We both love fish and chips. I think I've often wondered that question myself, like what would be the similarities? One of the things that I would say is the mindset of both countries, or both regions, I'd say, is somewhat different, because of course in the UK you're led by a monarchy, so you're subjects, and this isn't me trying to be a derogatory sounding person at all, but in the UK you're subjects to the royal family, and in Ireland we're citizens, of our country, which is just a small little difference. So I often sit back and say I couldn't imagine having a monarchy in Ireland, as an example. Like, I couldn't imagine the thought process of all of that. But then again, we did have kings back in Ireland in the days and years gone by. Other similarities and different. You pay less for cars than we do. We get absolutely fleeced over here with extra taxes and stuff. I think definitely would be more stuff that connects us than will divide us as groups of people, one way or the other. Yeah. Look, what I find funny though is the differences between the north and south of the UK. I tend to kind of connect more with people from the north side of the UK than down south towards London, as an example. I don't know why that would be. Actually, I don't. Dave said Guinness. I know we've got the better Guinness. We've got the better Guinness, mate. Just no question on that. The better Guinness comes out of St James's Gate here in Dublin. I say here in Dublin, I'm in Wexford, but you get me. Zach said, I super chatted yesterday. Can I email you about Liverpool after the stream? You can always email, Zach. Now, whether it gets to me or not, that's another thing, bro. But, Connor filters the emails to what he thinks I need to see. And that's done by design now, because of, the threats and stuff that came in. So crack on. As I said, contact at AnfieldAgenda.com, Zach. And if there's anything in particular, Connor will forward it on to me if he thinks it's something that I need to know about. Roger said, evening, Craig. Have I missed the Wharton news? You have, but I'll happily go over for you, Roger. No problem, mate. So basically, the Wharton stuff comes from an interview that was done with Joe Ledley. Did Joe Ledley used to play for Palace at any point? I know he's Welsh, obviously, but I don't remember. Did he play for Palace? So Joe Ledley said, talking about the future of Adam Wharton, he said Liverpool would be a good move for him in that midfield area with Alexis McAllister. He went on to say, so would Arsenal. Those sort of teams, the ones that get on the ball and are possession based, he would suit. So it wouldn't surprise me if those two were interested in January or at the end of the season. He's really confident on the ball, a good passer, moving it back and forward, and is always on the front foot. When he's played against Liverpool, he's fantastic and set up a few goals. So it wouldn't surprise me if it would be Liverpool or Arsenal that tried to sign him. On top of that, he said, while the Eagles have no intention of letting Wharton leave in the new year, there have been reports that they may attempt to cash in on Mark A in January in order to prevent their captain leaving for free next summer. So I don't know if he knows something we don't, but Adam Wharton is a name that has come up quite a bit when I've chatted with people, whether they be fans, when I've interacted with journalists, and it would be a name I think that would excite most of us as a potential incoming, but when and how much would be the questions, I guess. Darren Scoot said, love Ryanair, £33 return to Knock Airport, weekend with the lads in County Sligo, priceless. Absolutely, man. I'm the same. I fly Ryanair, I say 90% of the time that I fly around Europe would be with Ryanair. Keane said, what's the most you'd pay for Mark A in January if you were available? Somewhere between 15 and 20 would be where my head would be at, because as I thought about that, Keane, during the week, it would have to be enough to make it worthwhile for Crystal Palace to lose him halfway through the season, but would also have to have a significant reduction in what we're willing to pay there in the summer. So 15 to 20, somewhere in that ballpark is kind of where my head's at. But look, if the club wanted to go higher, I'm not going to sit here and criticise it, because ultimately we want a centre-back brought in, and, you know, Marquez seems to fit the bill. Stargirl, how are you, my friend? Hope you're well. Do say hello to Dad for me as well. I don't think we need a lot of new players. I would be just happy with 2 defenders and a DM. If Fede stays, we're okay for strikers. The team is okay. So in January, I'm just expecting a centre-back. You know, if I'm being really blunt, that's all I think might be possible in January. It's the summer where I'd be talking about a wide player and a DM. But my biggest worry, Stargirl, is if we don't bring in a centre-back in January, that, I think, could lead problems down the line for us. One injury, the Virgil or KONATE, and the season's in trouble. So without that depth there, because Gomez has been hit and miss when he's played for us this season. Obviously, Arne doesn't seem to... Look, he won't say he doesn't rate Gomez, but you're not seeing him being selected much, even when KONATE's had a lull in form or the defences look shaky. So it's critical for me that we get a centre-back in January, or I think we're in trouble as the season goes on. Dom being captain disrespects Robbo, I think. So there's 2 parts of this that you're missing. First part is the conversation is for a year and a half down the line after Virgil leaves. And the second and most important part you're missing is Andy Robertson's contract as we stand is up at the end of this season. So, you know, and also you want your captain playing most weeks. And with all due respect to Robbo, by the time Virgil leaves in 2 years or a year and a half, Robbo ain't going to be playing week in and week out at that point. So it wouldn't even make sense, really, to have him as the captain. So, yeah, like I said, I think you've misinterpreted the conversation. It's after Virgil, which is, we're talking about a year and a half, when, you know, Robertson's not even contracted past the end of this season as we sit here. And on that, actually, let's talk about Robbo, because Team Talk have said Liverpool left-back Andy Robertson is open to a pre-contract agreement to rejoin Celtic. The club views him as the perfect mentor for emerging left-back prospects and a leader to steady a defence that has shipped goals. His contract expires in June 2026. Look, if that is a role that Andy Robertson looks at, then why couldn't that role be with Liverpool? Because we've seen this season that Milos Kerkez could certainly do with some experience around him and a steady head and a leader to help him assimilate into that Liverpool squad. So I would say give Andy Robertson an extension rather than letting him go. Yes, try to cash in on Kerkez, but for me, you know, a 2-year extension for Andy Robertson, even a 1-year extension if he'd sign it with an option of another one. I don't want Robert to leave yet. You know, and we don't really talk about his contract being up much at the end of the season. I don't know if it's just out of fear or if just slipped by us, but yeah, it'd be an interesting one to see what does happen there, because I certainly think there is a place to keep him at the club. You know, Milos Kerkez is going to need more minutes as time goes on, but, you know, Andy Robertson's priceless, both as a leader at the club and, you know, as a left-back at the minute. Would you extend Robbo's contract, Craig? I would. I'd probably try to do it for 1 year with an option of another for the club. You know, I don't know how the player would feel about that, because certainly if I was in Andy Robertson's shoes, I'd be looking for a minimum 2-year contract, so I could totally understand from the player side if that wouldn't be appealing to him. But, you know, ultimately, this season, Robbo looks like he still has some left in the tank, so the smart thing would be 1 year with an option for me, but ultimately I'd rather he stayed than left, yes. Harry, Joe Ledley did play for Palace. Thank you, Harry. Appreciate that. I had it in my head that he might have, but, you know, the old brain isn't the sharpest. We beat Madrid, then didn't beat 115 charges. Oh, they didn't. We beat 115 charges. Well, I hope we get an answer on those charges soon, actually, Ian. And thank you, man, for the 24 months with us as a member. You know, they were supposed to be in and around this time, right? That they said that we would know what's going on in that Manchester City case. Sorry, Craig, seemed like a daft question. I was late in, so didn't get the context. Oh, all good, my man, all good. The context was basically after Virgil leaves, would Dom be a good choice for captain? Right, we are nearly at 1,200 votes. So when we get there, we'll knock this vote on the head. So if you haven't voted, still a chance to do so if you can. The question is, should Dominik Szoboszlai be captain after Virgil van Dijk? I just got myself a cappuccino and I'm thinking, pause my arse, Chris. Exactly, mate. Exactly. I'm glad you listened to the podcast. That's proof you did listen to it. And if you guys haven't had a chance, do check it out. I think it was a particularly enjoyable episode. I really enjoyed it anyway. Went up yesterday. You can find it on Spotify or, of course, on YouTube. Right, so 91% of the 1,200 votes that we had said yes, Dominik Szoboszlai should be captain after Virgil, and 9% said no. JD, sorry mate, I can't. JD Asliv Aj1 said, I'm still not sold on Szoboszlai. He had a couple of good games, but he doesn't give us much production. One good free kick does not make one great. I don't know what Dominik Szoboszlai you've been watching then, mate, because it isn't just one good free kick. Dominik Szoboszlai has been running the show and saving us at right back when he's had to play there. And, you know, of course, we're all entitled to our opinions, and you're certainly entitled to yours, but I would argue very strongly that we've seen a marked improvement in Dominik Szoboszlai over the past 18 months. And for me, he would be right now one of, if not the first name on any team sheet I'd be putting out. But like I said, we're all entitled to our opinions on it. I just strongly disagree. At FanMech, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, bro. Appreciate you. Welcome to the family. Bobby said Dad was a footballer, said Dom will be captain someday. Well, Craig was a footballer as well, you know, at a decent level. And I agree with your dad. He looks like a captain. Now, of course, he's the Hungarian national team captain already. But if you even take into account his age profile, like, I just think Dom will be a potential future leader of this club. You know, not wishing Virgil away. Virgil's our captain, Robbo's our vice captain, and two very deserving people. But I think, yeah, in the future, I'm with your dad on that one. I do think Dom will be a great captain. Keane said Dom has been, for me, the best midfielder in the league this season. So I couldn't answer that part because I have probably watched enough of others to say if anybody's up there on a par with him. But in our team, he's certainly the one that stands out for me this season, especially from the middle of the park. Spikesy said, last episode of the pod was funny. Listening to you guys crack jokes is real entertaining. I'm glad you enjoyed that because that's my favourite part, and that only comes for me with familiarity. And that's why myself, Connor and Chris go back quite a few years at this point. And, you know, I think we do loosen up as we do each episode. So, yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed the episode myself. FanMex, I got a free membership last month and want to keep it going. Thank you, man. I really do appreciate that support. It means a lot. Mohammed said Dom is the best midfielder in the world. Nice. There was a comment a second ago, and he started with unpopular opinion. It's Joseph's. Said, unpopular opinion, Dom is better than Maka, and probably by some margin. At this moment in time, I wouldn't disagree with that, and I don't think that would be an unpopular opinion. I think if we ask the chat right now, who's the better midfielder? Certainly this season, the answer, in my opinion, would have to be Dom. Now, Maka has been brilliant for us. And in the last couple of games, has definitely started to look more like the Alexis McAllister we all know and love. But I don't know if that would be an unpopular opinion or not. Craig, did you see the 4-4 Tunes video? I didn't. I actually put it into YouTube earlier on and then got distracted by something else. So I never actually clicked in and watched it. Was it good? I don't know. Somebody messaged me saying I was in it. I have no idea if that's true or not. I imagined if I was in it, I'd have heard a lot more about it by now. But yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but do want to. The Vinny Jr. one in particular. But yeah, like I said, searched it up earlier on, was about to press play. I think the carpenter came to the door at that point and we had to have a chat about the office. 1 goal, 1 assist this Premier League, just not enough. But honest question for you, mate. Why does an individual's numbers matter to you? Because for me, I don't give a shit what Mo does, I don't care what anybody does as long as Liverpool win a game of football. who has the goals, who has the assists. It feels irrelevant to me as long as we're winning. And, you know, I've seen more than enough with Dom this season to see a marked improvement in him. And like I said, he'd been playing at right back a couple of times as well, so we do have to factor that in. But look, like I said, we're all entitled to our own opinion, but yeah, I disagree. You are in a Craig booing Trent. Ooh! The one thing I didn't actually fucking do. Must have a word with Dean on that one. Of all the things about Trent, the one thing I didn't do was boo. So, yeah, don't know how I got lumped into that, but it is what it is. It's a cartoon and it's a brilliant cartoon. You fucking traitor! Probably something like that, was it? But look, hey, all good. All good. Bradley said, Craig, your voice is part of my daily afternoon. I listen to you while in Florida. You make my day better. Thank you, man. Very jealous of you being in Florida. I could do with some of that Florida weather right now. It's particularly miserable over here in Ireland, but much love to you, my friend. Thank you. Hope the ref is not against us versus City. Well, Paul, what worries me, mate, is the VAR, which is Michael Oliver for the game against Man City. That's what worries me. He always seems to have an impact in some way when he's refereeing our big games. And I go back to the Odegaard handball against Arsenal and a few other things where I'm just concerned. Craig, you were in it twice before Jude sits the chihuahuas on you. Nice. Good man. I must have a watch of it later on. Carol said, Mac is a World Cup winner and Dom is not. So who's the better midfielder? Are we that childish that that's the arguments we go to? One won the World Cup, the other didn't. So by that reckoning, England haven't had a decent player since 1966. I'm supposed to sit here and say that Roy Keane was shit as well because he didn't win a World Cup. It's a child's argument, in all honesty, mate. You know, because how many countries have players that are standouts in their countries that maybe may never win a World Cup because of those around them? That's just a really stupid argument, in all honesty, to say, well, one has the World Cup and one doesn't. Well, Jimmy Traore has the Champions League. Am I supposed to believe that Jimmy Traore is better than Declan Rice or, you know, others that maybe don't have that trophy? It's not a really valid way to critique an individual. Bob, how are you doing, Craig? Top fella, mate. Thank you. Appreciate the lives. Helped me recently. Big respect. Keep it up. Really thank you. Really thank you. Really appreciate that, Bob, mate. Thank you. And I hope all is well with you, sir. Joseph said, Craig, I remember a couple of years ago somebody commented that Dom could easily be better than Bellingham. I think that could very well be the case. Well, I often think about the Caicedo transfer, and obviously we missed out on him, and he's really come to the fore with Chelsea this season. But then I think about what we did with the money that we didn't spend, and we brought in McAllister, Szoboszlai, Endo, and Gravenberch, roughly around that time. And you have to say that midfield that was assembled with the Caicedo money, you know, that's the tried and tested midfield that won us the league. So the club did something right there. Although I'm not going to sit here and say I still wouldn't have loved Caicedo. I would. Since details, hope to hear from you. Our YouTube channel is called Handmade Well Made. Thank you, Scott. Certainly, I will ask Connor to keep a lookout for it, Scott. Handmade Well Made. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that. And if it gets sent on to me, which I'm sure it will, I will be in touch, sir. Bobby Firmino didn't have the numbers Salah and Mane had, but was brilliant regardless. Not always about the stats. It's what they do on the pitch that affects the game. I agree. Look, it's a team sport as well. We got to remember that. And for us as fans, it should be about Liverpool winning. And who scores the goals for me is irrelevant. You know, we all want everyone to feel happy and content in their own performances, but it's about winning for me. More comments, by the way, from Arna. He said, I fully believe in the strategy of this club and that strategy is that we don't have a very big squad. We have 19 or 20, but if you have that, then keeping them fit is crucial if you have so many games. That has been more difficult for us than last season. So, here's a question, and I don't think I've ever asked this question, so bear with me as I type this out. So, I'm going to explain why I've written this question first. So, Arna's saying there that we have a squad of 19-20, and if you have a squad that small, it's crucial that you keep them fit. So, to add into that, I want to ask, are you happy with the number of young players we're bringing through our academy? Because in my mind, if Arna's thinking we have a squad of 19-20, well, then my immediate thought process is, why aren't we supplementing that with more players, coming through? You look at Manchester City as an example, and Pep brought through some younger players there. And you look at us, and there's been some flirting with some of the young players, like Leone's been in and out a little bit. Obviously, Jayden Danns has had an injury problem, so that's been difficult. So I just want to ask, should we be looking to supplement the squad with more players, or is the academy producing enough at the minute, or could we do a little bit more in that regard? Paul said, but we've so many players I didn't think we would be short. I don't really get where he's coming from with the 19-20 players thing. Every Premier League club can have a 25-man squad. I think it has to be 17 or 8 homegrown if you want the full squad, and then 17 non-homegrown. So why do we only have 19-20? I don't know, because it doesn't even make sense. If we want minimum, let's say, 2 players in every position, well, immediately that's 22 players. So why do we have a squad that doesn't have 21, 22 players in it? Is it to keep people happy? Is it a wage thing? I don't really know, but I do think if you have the ability to have a bigger squad, why not have a few more in there? Ben said, "Thank you for reading and answering my comment. Made my day. My pleasure, dude. Look, I wish I could go through every single comment that people write. I try to mix it up between members' comments, non-members' comments, super chats, non-super chats. But I don't always get to everyone's comments, and I always understand if people are a bit frustrated at that." Nick said, in the mid-90s, we had quite a few youth players in the team. So look, yeah, it's cyclical as well. Like that class of 92 thing at United, nobody would ever expect that many players to come through at any one time as well. Liverpool over the years, we've certainly had our fair share. Fowler, Gerrard, Michael Owen coming through as an example, Carragher coming through, Jones coming through. I just wonder at the minute, you look through our team, and outside of Rio and Gamoa, there isn't really too many that you think are likely to get minutes in a meaningful game. Coming through the youth squad. But then again, I guess you balance that with, are those players that perhaps you think are on the fringe, are they the ones you're sending out on loan, to get more experience? Craig, don't worry, here in Switzerland, we're miserable and the weather's cold. Yeah, but you've got Toblerones and Swiss chocolate. And a better tax system as well, if I'm not mistaken. No, jokes, mate, jokes. Yeah, look, that's why I always go away for a bit of winter sun. I hate the cold weather all through the winter. It's depressing. How many of our youngsters have we lost since the 23 Cup? I can't remember, Nick, off the top of my head, mate. I can't remember. Danns has been just really unlucky, so I think if Jayden Danns was fit, he would certainly be in and around it. Kumas is another interesting one. Ngamoa, like we've said, Trey Leone. We sold Tyler Morton, obviously. Bobby Clark moved on. So, some players have moved on as well. Hi, Craig. I've seen a video from a rival YouTube channel. called Anything Liverpool. Well, let me first say we don't have any rivals, mate. We're on our own there. But and they were not very complimentary of the channel's comments about whether Arsenal should be removed. Look, I don't really know what to say to that, because everyone's entitled to have an opinion, and I put out an opinion. People are entitled to talk about that opinion, whether they like it or they don't like it. I've no problem with that. Yeah, so there's just not really to add on that. If people disagree, cool, no probs. As long as it doesn't get personal, crack on. But I guess the answer to the question, or the part to think about it, is I don't even know that exists. So they're commenting on my work. I think that gives you the answer as to whether we're rivals or not. I don't even know. That channel has a YouTube channel. And I know the owner of Anything Liverpool, by the way, and he's a very nice guy. But do I view them as a rival? No, I don't, because I'm the best at what I do. I don't give myself many pats on the back, but none of these guys can hold a candle to me for entertainment, for charisma, for interaction, for building a channel. I think I'm on my own in that regard. And if that sounds arrogant, sorry, but that's where I'm at with it. But I've learned not to jump down other people's throats with someone says, Craig, this channel said this about you or that about you. They're all entitled to an opinion. There's no problem with that whatsoever. As I said, we're in the opinions business, and everyone's entitled to. And when you're at the top of the mountain, people want to take shots at you as well. But the old adage comes to mind: if you come for the king, you best not miss. And I'm not. If anybody has anything to say about me, I'd rather they reached out to me than bitched about me on a stream behind my back. But that's an ideal world, especially when I've only ever been complimentary of Anything Liverpool and credited them for anything we've used that's of use of theirs and anything like that. So, yeah, no problem with an opinion though. Right, Grizzly said, any word on Angelo Stiller? Is he still a target? Truth is, dude, don't know. Couldn't tell you if he's still a target or not. Sorry. I haven't really followed the season this year either with Stuttgart. I know somebody told me he was working back from an injury from last season into the start of this season, but the only club I've really seen linked with him in recent time was Real Madrid. But like I said, that just doesn't mean I haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Stargirl said, Dad said a highway school was great for players. Yeah, Steve Highway was brilliant at bringing them through. Certainly brilliant. He had a good production line of players coming through as well. Is the match preview coming out tonight? It is indeed, Jack. Yes, it'll be out at 10:45, bro. So when we finish this stream, it should be pretty much out afterwards. Don't think there's going to be too many surprises in it for you, but again, always appreciate feedback. Bradley Warren said, Craig, I always say what other people think about me is none of my business. It's true, yeah. It's true. Look, like I said, I don't have any problem with people having an opinion as long as they don't get personal about it. Opinions are opinions. We're all in this. I know when I was coming up, did I critique people who were above me at the time? Absolutely, because you want to get into that conversation, The best case scenario in these type of situations is when a smaller channel has a pop at you, they want you to respond. If you respond, it highlights them and it gives them the oxygen that they need to let people know they exist. And I don't give people those cheap outs because nobody gave me a chance. I built this with Connor from the ground up our way. And my numbers do my talking. Simple as that. So anybody else can have their opinions, no probs. But they don't have my numbers. And that's what makes me happy. George said, Tom Holland has a great saying, if you've got a problem with me, call me. If you haven't got my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. That's a pretty good shout, yeah. That's a pretty good shout. Yeah, it's a pretty good shout. Jack said, you've predicted 2-2 against Frankfurt, Villa and Madrid. Please do the same tonight. You laugh at this, Jack. I wanted to, mate. That was, and I said to myself then exactly what you've said. You've predicted 2-2 for the last two games, and that we've won both of them. So in my head, I promise you, I did link up the same thought process you had there, but ultimately I didn't go with 2-2. But yeah, good spot. Kilo said, internet drama is layman for clicks. It's a ploy to get eyes on your channel. I know. Like I said, it's easy. And I did it. I get it. So like I said, I have no problem with it. I get it. When you go to Turkey, do you stay in a resort or Istanbul? In a resort, usually Dalaman, that kind of part of Turkey. Yeah, Aegean coast. Beautiful. Stunning. Luke, Kent, how are we, Luke? Said, had this discussion with my mate Craig. We were talking about whether Dom is a 10 or an 8. I reckon he's an 8.5. Need to hear your thoughts. I'm on your team. I'm on your team on this one, Luke. I think an 8.5 is a great shout. I don't think of him as a wide player. Some people could say he can play right. I don't really think of him as a 10, but I think he can be a bit more forward leaning than a normal box to box 8. So yeah, I'm on your team on that one, mate. An 8.5 would be, if I had to be pushed, I'd say 8. If I had to have an 8 or a 10, but yeah, I think you've nailed it. WWE Figures Hunt. Thank you. Appreciate you. I love Dalaman being several times. Stunning, said Paul Owens. Yes, beautiful, man. Some of the most incredible scenery, water, and it's just beautiful. Really lovely part of the world. Huh? I don't know what any of this is. Just found John Panette Chinese buffet sketch. Wow. Cool. That's all gone over my head, mate, completely. Except you've made me a little bit hungry thinking about Chinese buffets. Stargirl said, my mum met Highway, and even though she was an Everton fan, she loved the guy and got his autograph. She said he was a proper gentleman. Wish she was here to tell you. Well, that's a lovely story. Yeah, thank you for sharing it, and good to hear he was a gent as well. Harry said, do you think that Paul Ince is underrated because he played for both United and Liverpool? In my opinion, the fact he isn't hated by the majority of either fan base shows how good he was. Look, Paul Ince was a really good footballer. No doubt about that. What got me to dislike him a little bit was when you're calling yourself the governor. I think it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit arrogant. But like I said, very good footballer. Played at Inter Milan as well, if I'm not mistaken, in his career. Yeah, good footballer, no doubt about that. You know, you don't play for Liverpool, Manchester United, Inter Milan, clubs like that unless you've got something about you, and Paul Ince certainly did. Derek, thank you, Derek Cannon, appreciate you. Iron Head 460 said, feel like we need to trust them in proper games, not just when we're crossing. That doesn't build a player. Look at Rio, he came on and scored the winner. I'm with you. I don't think when you throw a player in, let's use a League Cup game, and we're putting young players into a really changed Liverpool team, I don't think that gives us a fair reflection of the players. I want to see a young player brought in, like you've correctly mentioned, in that moment against Newcastle, surrounded by the actual 11, the first teamers. Because then you get to see how he plays at that level with the players in and around them. So yeah, I agree. Taylor's World. Okay, don't know if you remember when Anne's funeral's next Tuesday. I'm breaking it as it's my first funeral. Do you have any advice on how to smoothly do it? I know you lost your parents. I'm sorry. So I don't think there is a way to smooth it, mate. In all honesty, and I don't know if others would feel this way, I don't remember much of my parents' funerals because the whole thing kind of goes by in an emotional blur. You know, you're shaking hands with people, you're going through the process of the day. Yeah, so I don't really have any. Just keep family around you is what I would say, and you know, make sure if somebody looks like they need a hug, you go give them a hug. But there is no easy way around funerals, unfortunately. what I would say to you is, at this point in my life, I very rarely show up to a funeral. I don't. I've had enough of hospitals and funerals and stuff like that to last a lifetime. So it's got to be somebody very close to me before I'm even going near a funeral these days. I don't even go visit graves or anything like that. You know, I told my wife, when I pass away, just do whatever's the least hassle for you with me. I don't really care. So yeah, sorry, man. I don't really have a better answer for you. The way Bobby Clark was brought in was done very well, same with Kwanzaa. He came in from Newcastle, Clark, didn't he? From their youth setup, if I'm not mistaken. Paul Owens, been watching for 6 months as a member. As a member for one, love it. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate your support. Glad you're enjoying the stream. Do you think we'll beat City? Said Jack Garou. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, my head says draw, my heart says win. None of it's saying lost though, which is probably a good thing, right? That's probably an upside. Yeah, I don't think it's really possible to go into this game with any type of arrogant confidence, you know, because they're in decent form. We're coming into decent form. Neither of our clubs at this point are probably where we'd want them to be. You know, if you're in either fan base, yeah, it's going to be a tough game. So I think any result's possible. And when any result's possible, I don't ever really get too cocky about it because, you know, hand on heart, I didn't think there was any way United were going to beat us at Anfield. None, zero. And they managed to do that. So, yeah, this could be anything at the weekend. But we do have good results leading up to it, which at least means if the result doesn't go our way, you know, we can just take it as it's just a tough game. Michael Manning said, please hit the like button, lovely people. Yes, please do. Yes, if you could, that would be really helpful. Everyone that hits the like button really does help push the channel out there. AJ Banot said, Craig, I think we'll win the Champions League. Think it's our time, and we tend to do well. The peak in Europe just feels inevitable at this point. So I'm kind of emotionally putting my heart on the line for the Champions League this year. You know, I'm almost looking at it comparable to Paris Saint-Germain, where start of the season was figuring some stuff out. You know, they scraped through the Champions League format, really, if you look at it last year, and then peaked at the right time and went on this very good run and deservedly won the Champions League. I'm hoping we can do something similar. As the season goes on, it's going to be really interesting to see if Arsenal mentally and physically can deal with being front runners in the Premier League and the knockout stages of the Champions League and all that entails. So I think something may give there. And I think that's probably our best chance of a big trophy this year. But knockout football, you know, you can never really plan too much for anything. One red card in a knockout game and, you know, or one team coming in scoring 3 in 15 minutes can turn the whole thing upside down. So, yeah, we're as good as anybody else in the competition. That's what I would say. I don't think Haaland... Excuse me, I don't think it's Haaland we need to naturalise. I think it's Foden and Doku feeding him. I don't want to tempt fate by saying this, but Doku, to me, always seems to run into blind alleys when he's playing quite a bit. Foden's coming in some very good form and scored a couple of very good goals against Borussia Dortmund as well. Really good technique, edge of the box. He's almost passing the ball into the corner. So, yeah, I agree on him. Foden's definitely somebody that concerns me coming into this game. Haaland, look, if you can stop the supply line to Haaland, you're going to go a long way to stop Manchester City, but they certainly aren't a one-player team, so I agree with you on that. Who's your favourite Liverpool player right now? Probably Alexis McAllister. If I had to be pushed on it, probably Alexis McAllister. Love Andy Robertson, love Mohamed Salah, love Virgil, love Alisson. But yeah, I'd probably say Maka. But Dom is probably up there as well. Taylor, no problem. Thanks for your videos. You've got a sub from me. Been nothing but friendly and a nice person. Not sure why you don't have a million. You're a legend, Craig. I know why I don't have a million subscribers, mate. I definitely say some shit that makes people think, what? You, what? Yeah, look, I could definitely, I know I'm Marmite. Some people like me, some people think I'm a lunatic, and I get it. I'd never take it personally unless it gets personal. Right, so people are asking me, can I go back to the Wharton and centre-back news? Absolutely. Let me start with the centre-back conversation. So the first thing that we spoke about today was a report from Caught Offside that linked Liverpool and Chelsea with a move for Sven Botman of Newcastle. They said there's been a delay sorting out his new contract because of the change in sporting director at Newcastle, and the delay has opened the door to a move away from the club. I don't really believe it, to be honest, that we're looking at Sven Botman. On top of that, there was a piece from Alto Belly 13 and Build that said Bayern really want to keep Upamecano. The central defender recently showed a top performance in the victory over Paris Saint-Germain and cleared everything that came into the box. However, if there's no contract extension, Bayern already have a promising candidate, KONATE. Again, from the same person at Alto Belly 13, Bayern are in contact with the management of Ibrahim KONATE, whose contract at Liverpool expires next summer. The Frenchman is also an option for Bayern in case Dayu Upamecano were to leave the club. KONATE's camp is speaking to Bayern, Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. The fact he knows the Bundesliga and that he'll be a free agent in the summer makes him an attractive option for Bayern. Then we moved on and we spoke a little bit about Joe Ledley, who was saying that he thinks that Liverpool will be a good fit for Wharton. He said Liverpool will be a good move from in that midfield area with Alexis McAllister, also Arsenal. Those sort of teams, the ones that get on the ball and are possession based, he would suit. So it wouldn't surprise me if those two were interested in January or at the end of the season. He's really confident on the ball, a good passer, moving it backward and forward, and is also good on the front foot. When he's played against Liverpool, he's been fantastic and set up a few goals. So it wouldn't surprise me if it would be Liverpool or Arsenal that tried to sign him. He kept speaking and he spoke a little bit about Mark Gay as well. And he said that while the Eagles have no intention of letting Wharton leave in the new year, there have been reports that they will attempt to cash in on Mark Gay in January in order to prevent losing the captain on a free. Actually, I don't think that's a quote directly to Joe Rodgers. Sorry, I think that was in the same piece that I read it from. But that's where we're at. And to me, I can see a world where KONATE leaves and Gay comes in at the end of the year. But it's January that worries me from the centre-back perspective because, you know, if we don't bring in Mark Gay in January, I still think we need to bring in a centre-back one way or the other. And I've justified it in my head by saying if we brought one in January, I can see Mark Gay coming in, KONATE going out, but I can also see us selling Joe Gomez next summer. So let's say we brought in, and I'm just throwing a random name out here, Schlotterbeck, just for argument's sake. Then we'd have Virgil van Dijk for one more year, Schlotterbeck coming in, Leone back to fitness, and Mark Gay come in. That, I think, with a young centre-back would be okay. That's the way I see it, because I don't think Joe will be a Liverpool player past next summer, personally. Not heard anything concrete, you know, just going off this summer and the lack of game time. Whereas Grav at Wharton and Maka could rotate three, but Grav and Maka are better at the moment. Look, I think it is about, like you've said, options. And in this scenario, and I said this maybe last week, I think in the future, again, don't shoot the messenger, I guess because I'm not even the messenger, but this is just an opinion that I have. I think when we bring in a DM, let's say Wharton, I'd be confident that within 1 year of that signing, we lose McAllister. I don't have anything to say it's going to happen. Nobody's told me it. It's just a feeling I have that I can see a world where we eventually have Leone coming in. We have Gravenberch, let's say Wharton for argument's sake, Wirtz, Szoboszlai, Jones. I just wonder, do we have too many central midfielders at that point? And I think that could lead to maybe Alexis' sale down the line. Just a thought process. Definitely not trying to say it's what's going to happen. It's just an idea that I think could be likely. What right wingers do you think could replace Salah other than Elise? So, with regards to an out-and-out right winger, there's not too many I could think of. But then you've got the likes of Semenyo, who you could argue could operate on either side. You've got Nico Williams as an argument who could operate off either side. But honestly, I think the answer will most likely come from Semenyo or Elise, if I was to guess. Thanks for that, Craig. Say we're going to offload Maka to fund 2 players. I don't buy that. Look, I don't expect Alexis McAllister to go this summer or anything like that. But I've always had a feeling he'll have some time in Spain. And if you're looking at the age profile of him, I think maybe about 28, roughly 29, maybe that time. So I could be wrong on this, and I hope I'm wrong on it. I hope Alexis McAllister's a Liverpool player till the day he hangs up his boots because I love him. My gut feeling is that he has a spell in Spain at some point. Dave said, Craig, would you prefer to lose Maka or Jones? Jones. It's not even a debate in my mind. I do think it's important to have a Scouse heartbeat in the team, but Jones isn't as good a footballer as Alexis McAllister, so if I had that option, I'd lose Jones every day of the week. So we asked, are you happy with how many youth players we're bringing through? And this is a really close vote, so if you haven't had a vote, please do. It's much closer than I thought. DJ Yosser said, do you ever watch old highlights from the Gerrard era and think players were of a higher standard? Always think the game's so much more exciting. I think twofold my answer. Sort of, yes, I get where you're coming from. But I also think football now has become overly tactical. And I think often we see teams cancelling each other out with low blocks or with going man-to-man. And I just think football was a bit freer back then, if that makes any sense. A little bit less complicated. And I'm a big believer that some people do overcomplicate football. I think you can get too in-depth on it because there always has to be time and space for freedom in football, in my opinion, for players of a Coutinho ilk or a Wirtz ilk or somebody like that to be able to express themselves out there on the pitch and not be stuck in the rigidity of some of the systems that we see these days. So I think the answer is probably somewhere between that. I think the gap as well between the lower tiers and the higher tiers is shrinking. So I think all of that in probably gives you my answer. And then you throw in VAR as well into the mix on top of all that. J Bob said, Craig, I think the tactics are making the sport a bit boring. Like they certainly can, like you look at, let's say, how Arteta comes to set up when we played them at Anfield. He comes not to lose and he comes and sits deep, and it can be sometimes a bit boring. Certainly as fans, we want games that are end to end, open, with plenty of creativity and chances in them. But, I guess if you're a manager and you know that you don't have an 11 that has the creativity and class of, let's say, Liverpool, well, you're going to try to play to your strengths, and that's probably going to be defending, getting bodies in the way, making it compact, and just not giving up anything cheaply. Kathy Jones said, enjoy the tackles more years ago. Yes, definitely. Sometimes I see yellow cards now for stuff that I honestly don't even think was a foul a lot of the time. I love a crunch and tackle, but it seems to be more and more leaving football these days. And with the emphasis on follow through and trailing legs, especially, I think it's almost becoming, they want it to be a non-contact sport. Uh, 60s Red said, some of these tackles hardly touch the player and they roll around like the foot's being amputated. Yep, I don't disagree with that either. Look, and then everything's going to be forensically analysed with VAR to the nth degree, and I don't agree with that either. Doesn't this season especially seem quite boring? Yes, it does. It definitely does. And I don't know if that is because teams are gone more tactical, more set piece oriented. But it does seem a very peculiar league. And I don't want to use the word a weaker season because I don't want to undermine what Arsenal may or may not achieve. I don't want to be like their fans who said we only won the league because everyone else was shit. You could probably make that argument for most seasons across most teams. But I don't want to do that to them this year because if they win the league, fair play. You can only beat what's in front of you every year. And, it's not up to you if everybody else isn't up to scratch. You do your thing, and if you win, fair play. And I'm very big on that. So, but it has been a strange season so far, yeah. Who's your favourite player to watch outside Liverpool this season? Good question. I mean, probably Yamal, if I'm being honest with you. It's probably Yamal. Yeah, I like young players, fearless, who just run with the ball, take people on, and try to make magic happen. So probably Yamal. Pedri, enjoyed watching as well. In the Prem, I don't really enjoy watching anybody outside of Liverpool because, if you're enjoying watching a rival, they're doing something that's probably hurting your team. Joseph said, personally, I find long throw-ins brilliantly entertaining. Chaos is better. I also think this is probably a better league than the past couple. Just look at the promoted teams. So the really interesting thing for me about long throw-ins is it's the second ball you should be worrying about. If you can win the first ball, great. But it's very rare that it's the initial contact from a long throw-in that ends up in the goal. It's usually the second ball. But yeah, I love chaos. Who doesn't love a bit of chaos in football? That's why I love the Jurgen Klopp era so much. Is we just went out there and had fucking mad moments, and it was so entertaining. Scott said, "Ref, do not card diving and flopping near enough. It's maddening." Yep. Look at Vinny Jr. against us. On a yellow, and the antics still kept up. So I agree. Everything is watched and scrutinised these days. Just let the games flow and let silly make out fouls go. I just think, yeah. Look, I'd get rid of VAR tomorrow. I said this yesterday. I'd get rid of VAR tomorrow at this point because I just don't. I think it takes away more than it adds to the game. And for me, and I'd love your feedback. When a ref got a decision wrong when we had no VAR back in the day, so there was something that was slightly offside or the ref got something wrong. Mentally, for me, of course you're going to be angry that the decision was wrong, but it was far easier to take when you could say to yourself, the ref only had one chance to look at it, they got it wrong. But when you feel like VAR have looked at it and it's still wrong, and you're wondering what they're seeing that you're not seeing, that to me just increases and intensifies the anger and the frustration that I feel, because then I don't have the kind of human understanding that yes, the referee is human, they see these things once, we can all miss stuff. So when you feel screwed over when VAR's involved, it makes it way worse for me, the feelings of anger. Especially when in your head you've got a VAR example from 2 weeks ago that was referee differently to what you're seeing the outcome of now. I miss non-VAR days. I don't think you're on your own, Bradley. I think, as fans now, can you ever really celebrate a goal? Because you're always worrying. Even, it used to be team score, quick glance over to the linesman, no flag up, happy days, away you go. Nowadays, you're wondering how many phases will they go back? What bullshit thing are they going to look to rule out a goal now? I just think, and then you've got the appeal of players every single time now there's a goal scored, they're putting their hand up looking for something from VAR. It takes some of the enjoyment out of it. Even as a watch-along host, I'm here and I'm thinking, if you celebrate this too much and VAR'd, you're going to look like an idiot. So you're second guessing yourself then in the moment as well about how you really want to celebrate a goal. That's why in the early rounds of the League Cup, I actually always enjoy them because there's no VAR. 60s Red, that question was answered for you, mate, in the chat. I'd seen Keane answering it. You asked it a couple of times, and Keane said that Aaron Briggs is a set piece coach. So there you go. That's that. I guess would be the answer. We did have a throw-in specialist. Was it Gronkhurst or something a while ago? But he's no longer helping out the club, I believe. But Aaron Briggs is in charge of our set pieces. So by extension of that, I think he's probably the answer. Bet you can't wait for ref cam on Sunday. Oh, look, honestly, don't want ref cams, don't want Dermot Gallagher's, don't want to listen to fucking Mike Dean or any of these other lads. Like, just stop making referees celebrities. Because it also increases the scrutiny on referees. So they're telling us that refs need respect, it's a difficult job, and then they're fucking throwing the referee in front of your face every week, and you're sitting there watching Dermot Gallagher back up the officials every week, and you're seething. And again, they're telling us that we need to be respectful and the referees have a hard job, and they're putting them in the spotlight right in front of you, making them celebrities, almost taunting you with them at times. Like, here's one, right? Thumbs up or thumbs down? No, I need this to be a poll, actually. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to end this one. So let me ask this. So, does the media gaslight fans on purpose? Because I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, they do. And I'll give you a case in point. Roy Keane and Jill Scott still banging on about the Trent booing and shit like that. I think the media massively gaslights us football fans. And it pisses me off because it's YouTuber behaviour. We're expected to be the ones that do that because we're fans and, we're not as professional and prim and proper. But I honestly feel like we are being gaslit so much these days as football fans. I don't just mean as Liverpool fans. I mean in general as football fans. I think we're being gaslit so much. What else we got? How embarrassed the refs look when they do have to talk to the crowd. The part that I find really cringe about that is my final decision. That part I find really cringy about. I don't mind referees addressing the crowd and explaining their decisions, but that my final decision is that shit I find cringy. Bernardo Silva gets away with so many yellows that should have been given to him. Oh, look, I would say to you over the years, Manchester City have gotten away with so many tactical fouls that other teams would have got yellows for. And it's happened all the way back even, before Rodri was there. It happened when Fernandinho was there. It just always felt like they don't get held to account for tactical fouls as much as others. VAR decision in favour of Barca was suspect. Goalkeeper smiling afterwards. In retrospect, punishment for conning the ref. A great show. Craig, love the hoodie. Thank you, Zerko. Appreciate it. Harry said, do you have the same pundits and coverage in Ireland on Sky as we do in the UK? Yeah. Totally same coverage, mate. Different ads in between the shows, but other than that, mate, exactly the same. Same setup. Paul Beer said, yes, they do. Sick of some ex-pros stirring it up. Yeah, same. Like Rooney. Let's go back to Rooney's comments that I read out yesterday. So he said, Liverpool fans, and he knows what he's doing here. Liverpool fans, for some reason, think they've got class. No Liverpool fans have to have a good look at themselves. From Roy Keane, talking about others assuming they have class. That is the argument of somebody who puts a narrative out there to back up his own opinion. So he said, Liverpool fans think they have class. Do we? I've been on this channel 8 years and I don't remember ever coming on here and saying, aren't we such a great classy bunch? Aren't we classier than everybody else? He just uses that to make his own belittling point of Liverpool for his little soundbite. I hate it. Like, so many people over the years say to me, Roy Keane's a good pundit. I think he's a shit pundit. Because all he is a soundbite merchant. And I don't get what I want from Roy Keane, which is insight into his time playing, the intricacies that we fans don't understand out there on the pitch. We can all say stupid lines for sound bites, but maybe that's what he's paid to do. I don't know. But I'd rather hear Roy Keane explain the stuff that we don't know as football fans, that we don't see, the intricacies, the slight little things. Just these cheap, lazy, bullshit sound bites to play to, you know, the old United fans or whatever. It's just fucking nonsense. He puts this up there just so he can then use this to undermine this, and it's ABC bullshit. And like I said, it's YouTuber behaviour. DJ Yasser said, Isak to hit form by Christmas. If we say he's fit, yeah, man. If he stays fit, I'd say so. Appreciate your membership as well with us, mate, for 5 months. But yeah, I think if he stays fit, that's the only concern I'd have, bro. Who are you rooting for the World Cup? Oh, well, I've already answered that. I bought my jersey yesterday. So, Argentina again. I got myself and Lucas the new Argentina Messi 10 shirt. And Sabrina wanted the Germany shirt. So, yeah, I'll be, same as I was last World Cup, shamelessly hoping Messi can lift it again. So, yeah, I'm nailing my colours very firmly to the Argentina mast there. Wouldn't mind Holland doing well as well, though. Obviously, with our captain and Cody and Ryan there, and our Dutch manager, wouldn't mind seeing the Netherlands do well. Rooney still a bit of blue under. Actually, on Rooney, I'm glad you brought him up because there was a little bit here today on him as well. So Wayne Rooney said, and I don't think that they gave him this quote correctly, because the quote said, on Van Dijk, his issue was that I said he's got a contract and looked like he's down tools. It was a bit unfair with that. I don't think that's the quote, because there's no which I've never heard him say a sentence without so it must have been his issue was when I said he got his new contract and looked like he's down tools. It was a bit unfair of me on that. I assume that was the actual quote. Scott said, as an ex-referee from 14 years old, the standard now is terrible. We could accept one man's mistake, but 3 people watching it 20 times on replay getting worse is an embarrassment. So, I can't remember what game I was watching the other day. What was it? So the referee was sent to the monitor to look at a penalty incident. Actually, I'll tell you which game it was. It was Shamrock Rovers. Shamrock Rovers were playing away against AEK Athens. And Rovers were 1-0 up in the 90th minute. And AEK Athens got a handball penalty. And they sent the ref to the monitor. And look, only Irish people would probably have paid attention to this because, you know, why would you be watching Rovers? The ref went to the monitor and they only showed the referee from the part where it kicked up off his foot to his arm. Didn't show the 2 seconds before that where the opposing player had his arm wrapped around and dragged the Shamrock Rovers player down to the ground, which caused the ball to hit his leg and then his hand. And then the ref gave the pen out. And I thought to myself, that's done intentionally. Why have they not showed him the second or two before that where it shows he's being fouled? And that's why he goes down and kicks the ball off his hand. And it wound me up something fierce. What do you think about the Arsenal fans pinching other teams' songs and just changing the words? Look, we're all guilty of it. Si Senor was pinched off Boca or River Plate. Can't remember which one of the teams from Argentina it was. Liverpool, I remember the Luis Suarez song, we robbed off Celtic. They were singing it for one of their players. So, look, that's, you know, that's football fandom. It is what it is. Thanks for getting me through work in the mornings 5 days a week. Love you, Craig. Hey, glad to help, Rachel. Glad to help. Just don't get caught in work and get in trouble. Just blame it on me if you do, mate. The scan said, can't remember the last time I saw a ref go to the monitor and stick with his initial decision. Kathy Jones said, Roy Keane, who revealed he blatantly went out to injure another footballer to wreck his career. Yep, classy. You see, I'm not going to hold Roy to account on that because Kathy, you know me, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was in Roy Keane's shoes, I'd probably have done the fucking same thing. I don't come across great saying that, but if somebody called me a cheat and said I was feigning injury before, have a little bit of that, you see you next Tuesday, I'd probably have done something similar. Would I want to end somebody's career? No, but I'd certainly have left a bit on them and said, who's feigning injury now, you little... You know, I can't lie, I would have. So, yeah, that part... You know, I don't want to be a hypocrite about it because I say to you, honestly, in my mind, if I was in his shoes, my thought process probably wouldn't have been a whole lot different. Joseph said, Arteta playing You'll Never Walk Alone in training will never not be funny and tragic at the same time. It's the light bulb one. The light bulb one for me, because some poor fucker had to go there and get the plug and all. That's the one that had me, the light bulb one. Man City studs in the chest. Mac was terrible by VAR. Yes, and I think, again, that was Oliver. And I remember after the game, if I'm not mixing the games up, I remember Kyle Walker praising the bravery of Oliver. And I was just thinking, what, for being a shithouse and blatantly giving the wrong decision? And then the Odegaard handball is when turning his body away from the ball. The fuck are you looking at? Because that's not what the rest of us seen. Wouldn't it be lovely to have the VAR audio? Wouldn't that be lovely? So we can hear how they're getting to the process. I don't like the commentators can apparently hear it on Sky. You know, I think they can pick up the VAR comments. Why don't we get that? I'd love to hear the process rather than the circle jerk of good process, lads, good process. I'd want to hear how they got to the decision, because sometimes you're left wondering, how did that happen? Both going in high. Yeah, and what world is that actually reality, Alfred? Like you said, both going in high. 1 foot to 1 chest, both going in high. Baffled, mate, how that was a conversation and how somebody didn't go, you what? But you excuse me? Both going, how? You know, sometimes you just wonder what on earth they're seeing. That challenge from Doku was used as an example of a high foot challenge. I know, David, it's nuts, and we got nothing for it. Yeah, absolutely nuts. Do you think Liverpool and Manchester United rivalry on the title will ever happen? I don't know, Hussein, but I really wanted to. And I always get myself in trouble when I say this, dude, because I'd love a proper title race with Liverpool and Manchester United. Whoever loses it, it's going to be incredibly painful. But, you know, as a Liverpool fan, one season maybe there was sort of a title race, but I don't really remember having that season where the two biggest clubs, you know, certainly the two most supported clubs here in Ireland, have that race. You know, it's been United Arsenal, Man City Liverpool, Arsenal Chelsea, Chelsea United. Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love that period where both of us had the two best teams in English football and we were both going at it season after season, because it would bring more eyes on the Premier League than ever, I think. Do you think we get Mark A now? Madrid have pulled out. So, Rachel, I hope, and again, the report yesterday was that Madrid have pulled out because, I think it was Lewis Steele. I think I still have it here for you. I can read it out. Bear with me. Yeah. So, Lewis Steele yesterday said, Mark Gay remains on Liverpool's list for future signing. We've already debated whether that should be in January or the summer, and sources in Madrid reckon he's given his word to join the Premier League champions. So, I'm hoping, Rachel, that is why they've dropped out of the conversation, because maybe they've been told you're wasting your time. Celtic had the You'll Never Walk Alone anthem before us too. Yeah, I think that's the case as well, Scott. I don't deny that. Yeah. Again, like I said, football fandom songs are cyclical and some of them get recycled. Some of them just sound and look better than others. Jay Cliff said, Craig, I've seen VAR done exactly what they do in rugby in a video clip from matches in Australia. It's the only way to do it and not this secretive squirrel BS. Exactly. Because I remember that clip, Jay Cliff, and if I remember it correctly, in the clip you're talking about where they did it in the football in Australia, I think the ref or the VAR, someone said, yeah, I'll have to sell it. If I'm thinking of the same clip right. So, yeah, right decision. I'll have to sell the decision. If I'm thinking of the same one. Right. So, we only had a short time with this poll, and it's just a really quick sample size with it. But we asked, does the media gaslight football fans on purpose? And although, like I said, we've only had a short time with it, 95% of people, and yes, it was only 333 votes, but 95% of people that voted said yes, they do. And I would definitely be in that 95%. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to say goodnight because the preview is coming out now in 4 minutes, so I do hope you get a chance to watch it. I've just seen a super chat come in from Harry, so I'll make sure I read this one first. Harry said, as a season ticket holder at Man United, I'm absolutely with you and that I'd love a Man United Liverpool title race. Side note, I don't think Arsenal fans would be able to handle that. Yeah, they'd really want to be putting themselves into that conversation somehow, wouldn't they, Harry, in their own mind? And look, I'm glad you said the same, Harry, because it'd be horrible for whichever one of us loses it. You know, that would be the same, well, about the Champions League final. Imagine Liverpool United in the Champions League final. If you win it, I don't know if there'll ever be a better feeling. But if you lose it, oh, man. Yeah, the banter would be never ending, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I agree with you, Harry. And thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Right, ladies and gents, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be around same time, same place. We'll have a stream at about 8:30 tomorrow night. Preview is coming out now in a few minutes. And if I don't see you tomorrow because you're busy or whatever, I hope to see you for the watch along. On Sunday, we'll be starting from 3:15 p.m. and we'll have a late night agenda that night as well. So look, have a great weekend. Appreciate all your support. If you can hit the like button for me before you head off, please do. And